Hey, welcome to Dr. Kim Live today. Today, what if in your marriage you mastered the art of listening and of being present? What if in your arguments you fought and revised the problem almost every time? Today, we're going to talk about that as we talk about the next two secrets in my book, 7 Secrets to an Awesome Marriage. Hey, hope you guys are doing good today. Hope you're having a great day. It is a Tuesday. It is cold here where we are. We had a little bit of snow yesterday, which is so weird for this time of year in Oklahoma City, but we did. And so that's kind of where we are with everything. So today we are going to talk about the next two secrets, which connect and engage. And as we get into that, a couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about. Trying to get the right camera. So I want to give you an idea of kind of what goes on behind the scenes as we do that. So let's take this word connect. It can mean a number of things. We connect dots. We connect airplane flights to get us where we want to go. We connect with others in our same profession, hoping that we can learn from them. But what does connect mean in a marriage? Is it talking? Is it hanging out together? Is it just the absence of fighting? Is it sharing a bank account? Is it going on a date? Is it just living under the same roof? You know, I know couples that do all those things, that hang out together, that don't fight much, that have the same bank account, that live under the same roof. But I would not use the word connected to describe them. Their talk is always surface. They hang out, but it's more just out of convenience because they're there. They don't fight, but there's no passion in the marriage. The dates keep them from going to movie or out to dinner alone, and living under the same roof saves a lot of money on their bills. Those couples don't connect. They exist. Someone observing them might think they're connected, but they're not. The difference, and I hope this means you, and this is what I want to talk to you about, and hope that you get there, that when you talk to each other, you put a lot of effort into listening. You want to know each other, then you want to talk, and we know that you're heard. That kind of thing connects us. We hang out together, we touch, we sit close together, we hold hands. Physical touch connects us, and we know that. Sharing a bank account connects us because we have a budget. And when we stick to it, we have more to give away, and being generous connects us. We start having dates. We look forward to living time together. All that connects us. The place we live under the same roof is our home, and we connect there every single day. So that's really what connecting is all about. It's not just going through the motions. It's a deeper connection. It's doing that more together consistently, and it grows your marriage, and it makes your marriage so much better because you're doing that. So we're going to look at a one thing today, and that will go along with what we're talking about. And let's do that right now. What is your most enjoyable date as a couple? Is it going to a favorite place or eating at a favorite restaurant? Is it a day trip? If you're planning a date for just the two of you, what would be your first choice of what to do? Nancy and I love eating dinner together. We like trying new places and visiting old favorites. When we're traveling, we try to find the restaurants that the locals frequent. Our love for dining together began in college. We ate dinner together almost every single night. I love sitting across from her, looking her in the eyes, and talking together. I think that's how I fell in love with her. Throughout our entire marriage, we've made it a priority to have at least one date a week. When our kids were at home, it was just one time a week that was set aside for just the two of us. We held our date nights sacred, and we still do. The majority of our dates involve at least part of the date sitting across from each other and eating. So what's your favorite date? Today's one thing: plan that favorite date for the two of you. You know, if we're going to talk about connecting, and we're talking about doing that in your marriage together, having a date together is a great way to do that. And I think dates are so important. You know, Nancy and I have been consistent in that our whole marriage. That was one of the things we did good. You know, we've done a lot of things wrong. We've learned from a lot of things, but having the consistent date, I think because we did it so well in college, we just wanted to continue that once we got married. And so we did. And so that's been something that I think has been an important part of our life. So I encourage you, if you're not having regular dates or haven't had a date in a long time, take that date and see if that can start something that really works into something really good for your marriage relationship. I've got a lot of you watching right now. I'm so excited about that. If you have questions about what we're talking about today, connecting or engaging, which is fighting or getting closer together, or you have a question about anything else, I'd love for you to ask your question. You can put it right there in the chat, and I will look at it and listen to it, and we'll go from there. We have a couple of questions that came in earlier. This one is kind of, I think it kind of goes along with just having an awesome marriage. And the question was, what is the importance of having a mentor? You know, we talk a lot about mentor couples and the importance of that because to me, Nancy and I had some people that were at least one stage ahead of us in marriage, or maybe some of them were 2 stages ahead. I remember a couple that was probably 30 years older than us that really took time to invest in us and to care for us in the early years of our marriage. And so having a mentor, I think, is really, really important because you've got people who have been through things before. And so it's important to pick out the right kind of mentor. I mean, I think you want someone that has the same faith, that believes the things that you believe, that wanted the things and is getting the things in marriage that you guys value and then you want. And then you find that person. And sometimes it helps just maybe that person's going to just stand out to you. Maybe as we just even talk about it right now, you're going to think, I know who could be a mentor for us. Maybe you need to just kind of look around when you're at church and look at those couples that seem really connected and ask one of them, just can we buy coffee? Can we take you to coffee? Can we take you to lunch? Can we just down and talk and see if they would fit and be willing to do that? You may have someone in your church that kind of helps put couples together. We do that in our church. And so there may be some couples just waiting for a couple like you to spend time with. So you can ask the person who's in charge of that or your pastor, something like that. But if you have an opportunity to find a mentor couple to spend some time with you, maybe you say, could we just meet once a month for a year? Something like that. It can make a huge difference. So yes, it is important. You can learn from them. You can grow from them. You can learn from their mistakes, and maybe you won't commit the same mistakes over and over that they have already committed. All right. Second question that came in, my spouse will not go to counseling because they feel like it will be pointing the finger at them the whole time. How can I help them see that this will not be the case? I think a couple things I think of in this. One, I've had couples that have come in that have had bad experiences in counseling. So I think when you pick a counselor, you want to find someone that maybe someone refers to you or tells you they have been and it's really worked out well, so you kind of know what you're expecting going in. Because if you've never been to counseling, I know people come in for the first time to my office. It can be a scary thing, and I want to put people at ease. And I don't point the finger at people. I mean, the way I feel like it happens is people come in the first time, they tell their story. I help them kind of unravel some things, and then we identify some things together to work on. And if the husband there's things that he needs to work on, there's going to be things for the wife to work on or to help him in accomplishing those things. So it's like what we do. My goal is to try to get them working on something together that's going to benefit them individually and as a couple in their marriage relationship. So I would just do this. If the person just say, hey, would you just go one time, and then make sure you pick out a counselor that you think will click with your spouse, that you think your spouse will like and get along with and respect, so they'll come back more than once. But just ask them to go one time, pick a good counselor, and see if they'll go with you. Counseling, obviously I believe in it. Nancy and I have done counseling. I think so many people I know that have good marriages have done counseling, because having someone to kind of give a different perspective, especially if you're having something you're struggling to get over, a good counselor can help you a lot in doing that and in accomplishing that. All right. Again, if you guys are live with us, I would love for you guys to join us and to ask me a question. I would love to do that. So as we move on to engage, let's talk about the word conflict. What comes to your mind when you hear the word conflict? Most of us don't get warm, fuzzy feelings. You know, conflict is something that people avoid, they don't like. Depending on your life experience, our responses can range from something that's been unpleasant to really just absolute fear. And when we have conflict in a marriage, we find it plays out in a number of ways. Some couples just go toe-to-toe. Man, they just start going at it. They are face-to-face, fighting it out. That was pretty much what we did early on in marriage. In an all-out battle, as to what happens in that, is at the end, somebody wins, somebody loses. What really happens is your spouse loses and your marriage loses. Other couples fight and different in that one is dominant and the other is passive. The fights don't usually last long, as a dominant person quickly overpowers the passive one, in either physically or verbally. That's not a good deal. There are a lot of combinations in between. The bottom line is very few couples handle conflict in a healthy way. So look at your marriage for a minute. Think about your times of conflict. How do you handle them? If you fight to the finish, you do get one winner and two losers, the losing spouse in the marriage. If one dominates the other, trust is broken and walls go up to protect. Often I see couples that seem to be in a conflict pattern. They fight about almost everything. I can remember that. I was looking back amazed at some of the things we used to fight about. They don't choose their battles well at all. That's something that we had to learn to do. Repeated and unresolved conflict it's going to eventually kill your marriage. But what if instead of conflict, we switched over to the road of engage? Engage is different. Every marriage has conflict. It may look different from one marriage to the other, but every marriage has conflict. Honestly, if a couple told me they never had conflict, I think one of two things. One, they're totally unconnected, or two, they're really not being totally honest with me. Marriage is designed for conflict. We are different by design, and differences can cause conflict. We offer either embrace our differences or we let them tear us apart. And so many times when I see couples in counseling, it is their differences that are pulling apart. They're having trouble embracing them. There's so much to learn from the Bible. There's one verse that I love that I think turns conflict into engaging. It's James 1:19, and it says, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone," that's me, that's you, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. That's it. Break that down. Listen to your spouse. Really listen and value what they say. Embrace the differences. Take your time before you speak so you don't say something you'll later regret. And finally, control your anger. For some of you, that's tough because you've never controlled it or you've not controlled it for a very long time. But these 3 steps put the lid on conflict and set an atmosphere engaging where differences can be resolved and they can be valued. And that's what we really all want. We want those conflicts. We don't want to fight the rest of our lives together. We want to be able to resolve those conflicts in a healthy way. All right, so we've talked about conflict resolution, we've talked about engage, we've talked about connect, we've talked about things that are so important, to take the time to connect, to take the time to learn to twist that conflict into engaging where it really will grow your relationship and grow your marriage. So one of the things that people fight about all the time, something that is in the top 3 categories always when I see things about problems in marriage, is money. So we're going to look at a vlog that I did, and we're going to talk about what happens with money. Most husbands and wives I counsel, from the first couple I counseled some 30 plus years ago to the couples I see today, deal with at least some form of money issues. The reasons are many. Some people are faced with truly difficult financial situations due to a job loss or a sudden turn in the economy. Some people create their own mess with overspending or bad investments. Sometimes an investment might seem like such a good idea that you cannot really believe it's real. Experience is, it's usually not. We're bombarded with all kinds of messages that tell us that things will make our lives better. We see others getting things and think, we need them too. Our best friends buy a new home, or remodel their old home, or get a new car, or the list is long. A number of years ago, I attended a conference in Amsterdam. There were pastors there from many nations, including third world countries. I was there to help counsel pastors who ask for help. I remember a pastor from a very, very poor place. As we began to pray, he said to me, I will pray for your country, for your people to know God. Your people have too much that takes the place of God. We have nothing but God. It's easier for us to lose our perspective. Many of us in the United States may not feel rich, but when compared to the world standards, we are undoubtedly rich. The fight for us is to keep our eyes on what God has for us and what He wants us to do with the money that He entrusts to us. When I remember that God is the owner of the money and He asked me to manage it, things begin to fall into place. Don't get me wrong, I haven't got all this money stuff figured out. I can walk through an electronics store and mentally build my theater room or my sports room. There are all kinds of things from gadgets to cars to clothes that catch my eye. I'm not saying these are bad or wrong to have. I'm just saying I want to run it by God first. I always want to make sure I'm using money to do the things He wants me to do. Most of us don't like to talk about money, but I think God wants us to. It's the most mentioned subject in the New Testament. My challenge for you today is simple. Start the conversation together, husband and wife, with God about his money today. And we are back. So, the whole money thing, I think it's really easy for us to lose perspective. I can fall into it. In fact, I was thinking Nancy and I were talking about Sunday. We're talking about doing with less and cutting back, and we've downsized house over the last year or so and things like that. And then yesterday I just was on Amazon and found something, and just so easy for me to fall back on that. Not that what I bought was bad, and I think it's something that will be really helpful for us, but it's just so easy for us to do things and not really always use our money the way God intends, and it comes from him. All right? Okay, so if you have questions, anybody that's watching live, we would love to on YouTube for you to ask a question. And now, let's do a couple more questions that people sent in. What's one thing we can do together that will truly help our marriage? Okay, we talk all the time about praying together and how important praying together is. And I think a lot of couples don't. A lot of people don't know where to start. A lot of people don't know even how to do that. And it can be really simple. You can just say together, let's pray about our marriage. We can pray silently together about that. We can both be praying for that. Maybe you make a list of like 3 things that you're both going to pray about. Maybe you don't feel comfortable praying out loud together. That's okay. Pray silently together. If one feels comfortable praying out loud and the other one doesn't, go with the one who's least comfortable. Just begin to pray together. And if you do that, if you commit to pray together every day for 30 days, I know you'll see a difference. You'll see a difference in your marriage. You'll see God show up. You will see him answer prayers. There was a time a few years ago when Nancy and I in January picked 3 things that we were going to both pray about that we knew the only way that happened is if God intervened. By August of that year, all 3 things had happened. God wants to answer our prayers. He wants to show up in your marriage. So give him that. So prayer is certainly one of those things. Spending time together consistently in just enjoying each other, learning about each other, growing together, that's really important. Having fun together, laughing together, really important. Those kind of things are so important because they add value to your marriage relationship. Okay, so last question that came, and I think there's a couple more that came in. How can we stop fighting each other and start fighting for our marriage together? It's a choice. We get into habits. We get into habits where everything the other person does irritates us or bugs us. We don't choose our battles well. I think it's like saying together, let's have a new starting point. We're fighting over everything. Let's work together and fight for our marriage. And so when something comes up, you sit down and talk it out. Or if you need to get counseling, you get counseling or get help. You don't just keep bickering and fighting over it. But I think if you will begin to say, okay, our finance is a problem. Maybe that's something you fight about every month. Maybe the credit card bill comes every month and you guys fight over it. Your decision is this month when the credit card bill comes in, we'll sit down and talk about it together. We won't cast blame. We'll look together. What could we have saved on? Did we do a good job of managing it this month? And what are we going to do next month together? So it's not just one person pointing the finger at the other person saying, you need to do this, you need to do that. Does that make sense? And so, again, it's learning to address all of these things together. Great questions. All right. Question coming in. Can you clear up some confusion for me, please? What needs are a husband supposed to meet? I'm listening to various sources of info and getting a husband can't meet all your needs. Only God can do that. Yeah, I think what I would say in that is that, like in our relationship, at times I'm going to let Nancy down. God never will. At times, I'm not always going to be there for her. God always will. At times, I'm not going to love her perfectly. God always will. And so what I think I mean by that is that if Nancy expects me to be perfect like God is, she's going to be disappointed. Now, my role as husband is to love her, to care for her, to cherish her, to do those things, to provide for her as best I can with God's help. And her role is to know that I'm not going to be perfect at that, and that I'm going to give my effort, I'm going to give my best, but times I'm going to let her down. But God never will. And if she's depending on me to be perfect in all those things, I'm going to let her down all the time because I don't think there's a day, there'll never be a day that I'm perfect. So I think what we mean there is there are things that I can do to make her life better, richer, improved. We have fun together. We enjoy things together. Just so many blessings in that as a husband that I can do for her or be in a marriage. But letting God do those things that only God can do allows me to do the things that God equips me to do as a husband. I hope that helps. Yeah, I hope that helps. That, what's the husband and which are for God. The unconditional, all those kind of things, God's promises, those are the things that he does. The husband does the things that, and sometimes that varies from marriage to marriage, What does Nancy need for me to do as a husband? And she can say, I would like you to do this. I need you to do that. I can say, that's realistic. I can do that. Maybe she expects me to help around the house all the time. That's great. I can do that. I can do that every day. Maybe she expects me to just spend time with her every day. I can do that. So again, I think it can vary from couple to couple. What does your spouse need? And are those needs realistic? And then you try to work them out, act them out together. Great, great questions. One of the things that when we're talking about this today is that we have a YouVersion plan that goes along with my book, 7 Secrets to an Awesome Marriage. And the YouVersion plan, you can get on the YouVersion Bible app. You can go on YouVersion plan. You go to plans, or YouVersion app, go to plans, go to search. You can put in 7 Secrets to Awesome Marriage. You can put in Dr. Kim Kimberling. You can put in Awesome Marriage. This is one of them. We have over 30 of them in there that will pop up. And this one, I think, would really help you. Everything that's in it, I think, is helpful. Let's look at one of the videos that goes along with that Bible plan as we talk about one of the things we talked about today. I hate it when Nancy and I fight. We both hate it. And today, actually, we fight very little. But you would never have guessed that we hated fighting from some of the fights we had in the first few years of our marriage. They would escalate quickly, and we would say things we later regretted. When we fought, we both wanted to win. And winning in a marriage is never good unless both win. But that wasn't our goal. Our fights were one winner, one loser, and our marriage, man, it was sinking big time. You've got to learn to pick your battles. There's so many things that could cause an argument, and it's so important to not fight about everything. But Nancy and I, we fought about everything. At times it probably even looked like we were inventing things to fight about. What it took us a really long time to learn was that we didn't have to continue to fight this way. The reality was we weren't going to see eye to eye on everything. We were going to have conflict, but no one ever told us that we could disagree in a healthy way. For us, fighting was fighting. When we finally learned that we could fight right or fight wrong, it was like the heavens parted. There were words we didn't have to use, and instead we could say things that were positive and healing instead of hurtful and negative. It was a turning point for our marriage. We learned to engage. We learned how to fight right. So what about you and your marriage? How do you fight? What are the words you use? How do you say them? Fighting right takes more time, it takes more creative energy than fighting wrong does. But fighting right, engaging, it can grow your marriage. It can draw you closer together. It can give you the confidence that with God's help, there is nothing you can't conquer as a couple. Well, that reading plan, as we have had over almost 250,000 people complete that. Or couples complete that. And it is our top Spanish plan. It is one of our 2 plans in Spanish, and I think we've had over 30,000 couples complete it there. So we're getting close to 300,000 completions of that plan, which is just awesome. God's used it in some amazing ways. All right. Another question coming in. Roberta, I'm family oriented. My husband is not. I'm used to family being around, but he wants me all to himself. What should you do? That's a great question. And I think that's one that you're not the only one that deals with that question. I think that comes in. I think that happens a lot, especially if one person grew up where there's a lot of emphasis on family, joy family, and not. What I would say and what I would talk to your husband about, if you guys came in for counseling, I'd say, let's look at some balance. Maybe you don't spend everything all the time you want to spend with your family, but he's willing to give and not expect you to be with him all the time. Is there a compromise there? Is there a middle ground that you guys can have? Also, is there a conflict between him and your family? Is there something that could be resolved where he could embrace that? He could be enjoy your family with you and be more a part of the things that you guys do together as a family. I was thinking of a couple that was like that, and she would go every Sunday to her family, and he would stay at home. And their compromise was that, that I guess she would go like actually most weekends she'd go and spend Saturday night, and Sunday because they lived about an hour away from they lived. So the first compromise would be that she went every other week. And then what they came to is that he would go once a month with her. Well, he'd never really done that before, but once he did, learned to understand her family more, to know her family better, it became something that he looked forward to and did. So I'm not sure where you are in the marriage or how long you've been married. Maybe this is a battle that's going on a while. If it's new, I would kind of ease into it and see if you guys can find a compromise. See if he can learn to see your family through your eyes, and is it people that could love him, care for him, those kind of things. I hope that's helpful. Another question that came in: what do I do when I want to give up on my marriage? I think that goes through a lot of people's minds. I think marriage is hard. I think it takes work. I think we live in a culture that doesn't value it very much, and so it's easy for people to say, I'm out of here. I would say this: don't give up. Now, and this, what I'm going to say, unless you're being abused or hurt or physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually hurt, then I would stay in and try to make it work. What can you do to do that? 1, counseling is always good. 2, getting in church together, praying together, asking God to give you strength, asking God to help you see your spouse through his eyes. That's a huge thing to pray. Sometimes it helps our perspective. And letting your spouse know, I want this to work. Will you work on this with me? You can't do it by yourself, but you can be obedient to God. You can do every day, what does God want me to do as a husband or a wife? And then carry that out and see if that can begin to jumpstart your marriage. We all stood at the altar at some point and had hopes and dreams of what our marriages could be. I think way too often we give up on it way too easy. I was talking to a good friend not too long ago, and he been married 20, 21 years, and he said, I see so many couples giving up after just a few years. We worked through things. We worked hard. We went through some valleys to get to where we are, and I would not trade that for anything. And I think you don't want to give up and miss out on what God can have for you in the future and can help you learn where you are right now. All right, that's going to be about it for today. We're going to flip over to Facebook and do some Facebook Live over there. Next week on the show, we will have redefining love. What does that mean? Redefining love. What can that do for your marriage relationship if you redefine love? So, thanks for joining us, Dr. Kim Live. Tell everybody on YouTube we're here every Tuesday at 1:30. Thank you for all those that joined us live and your questions. I love it. Thanks for being a part of what we're doing at Awesome Marriage.